What's up, everybody? Drive by here. I'm going to go over a macro guide today. I'm not showing you like my specific macros. I'm actually trying to teach you how to make your own macros, fix your own macros, and in general, just not make it so intimidating. It's actually pretty simple once you get started. First and foremost, if you want to get into macros, you're going to have to hit escape and hit macros, or you can type /M. Or you can open up the menu in the bottom right and get into macros. Okay, there's a lot of macros here already, but first let me just tell you there's a general macro tab, and then there's a character specific macro tab. The general macro tab is 120 macros across all your characters on your account. The specific one is just for your character. 18, so 138 total you could have right now. Okay. The first thing we're going to do, let me pull up this, get a little guide for it. There we go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to understand that macros have one, maybe two parts to it. It's going to have a command, always. And then it's going to have potentially a condition, most do, right? Take out the trash if it's full, essentially, right? So, what we're going to do is we're going to make our first macro, and we're just going to jump in just because it's easier to see with examples. So, we're going to make new. We're going to type test. And keep in mind, you're not trying to copy my macro, you're trying to understand macros. If you notice, I didn't pick an icon. I just said okay. Now it's a question mark that says test. That is perfect. If you're down there picking icons, stop it, right? It's gonna be based on what's in it, unless you have another type of macro, which we will show later. All right. So the very first thing you're gonna put at the beginning of most of your macros with abilities is this command: show # show tool tip, all one word, space. Okay. I think for this macro, I'm gonna use Soul Rot, right, which is a big damaging ability for me. So I'm actually going to type Soul Rot in here. Now that doesn't mean when I click this ability, it's going to use Soul Rot. What it means once I hit save here is that icon is going to turn into Soul Rot, and when I use this ability, it's going to show a cooldown. When I use this macro, it's going to show a cooldown for Soul Rot. So if I go here, and there's the icon, and I don't have anything to use yet, but we'll add a command, and probably the most common one you're going to use /cast. That's the command, right? And then here's the end command of it. Soul Rot. Save. We have our first macro. This macro is essentially just Soul Rot, right? It just does Soul Rot. It has the icon set, and then it casts Soul Rot. So let's take that, put it on our action bar, go to this training dummy, and let's test it. Boom. It does exactly that. It does Soul Rot. And then you can see I don't have my add-on on here, but you can see it sweeping around in a circle, and the cooldown is up one. Perfect. Next, we're going to add another thing to it. So let's hit enter and add a line before it. Why before it? Because Soul Rot has a global cooldown, and macros are read from left to right, top to bottom. So whatever I want to be applied to the Soul Rot needs to be before it, and it can't have what's called a global cooldown. A global cooldown is the time the animation takes to do the ability, right? So if I cast Fire Blast is an instant spell, but I still had to use my hand and throw it forward, and a Fire Blast had to come out. Otherwise, without global cooldowns, we're just spamming abilities and getting them out as fast as possible, and it becomes about who can click faster, right? So we don't want that. But some abilities do not have a global cooldown, and if you want to check if an ability has a global cooldown, you're going to want to either use it, it's by the simplest way, or you can go onto wowhead.com, type the ability in, and it'll show you right on the stats for the ability if it has a global cooldown. I'm a troll. I'm going to use Berserking. I know Berserking does not have a global cooldown, and a lot of racials do not have global cooldowns. So I'm going to take Berserking. I'm going to come into this line that I made earlier. I'm going to type cast, because Berserking is a spell, right? It's an ability. And I'm going to hold shift and click Berserking. So now it filled it in for me, and I'm going to hit save. So I have show tooltip showing me the icon and the timer for soul rot. I have berserking, and then I have soul rot right under it. If I took out the soul rot here and I saved it, it's going to show berserking because that's the first one on the list. Nice. So now when I use it, it won't show the soul rot cooldown, it should show the berserking cooldown, but I actually want to see the soul rot cooldown. So, another thing to note is that berserking is a 3-minute cooldown and soul rot is a 1-minute cooldown. So that means that every first and then third time I hit this, it's going to use berserking. But if it can't use berserking, it'll just skip it because it has no global cooldown either way. And it can't use it, so it's just going to go to the next ability. It doesn't like stop working when it can't use something. It just skips it and does the next thing, which is really convenient, right? So we can have it use berserking whenever I have it, right? Whenever I can use it, it'll use it with soul rot. That was the point of this, right? And so now I don't have to track my berserking as much. It'll just always be tied to my soul rot. Okay, now that we've made our first macro, we're going to try to explore more commands besides just cast. Remember, there's 2 parts to a macro. We have to master the command aspect, which is what we're working on right now. And then the next part will be the conditional aspect, right? The next one I think we're going to play with is the use command, /use command. And that's going to use items, right? And we're going to use our trinket, right? Because trinkets have no global cooldown. So we're going to add our trinket to this macro. So I'm going to make a free line. It can be before or after berserking. Doesn't really matter. But it has to be before soul rot if you want the trinket to affect soul rot, right? So we're going to go /use. And we can do it 2 ways. We could use the 13th gear slot, which is what this is on. It's the 14th. It's the 12th. It's the 13th. Or I can hold shift and click it. So I can do that. Or I can type 13. Both are exactly the same. And I'll hit save. So now I've used an item. And now we can look at our buffs over here on the side. When I go to use this, it's gonna use berserking and our trinket. Boom, there's our trinket, there's berserking, and we have soul rot up. It went up pretty quick, and it's slapping harder than it ever has. So that's the use function, the use command, and macros. Next, we have the equipped command. So this is different, and I'm not going to be able to put it in with the macros, the macro we tested. So let's delete this one. And let's make a new test. And show tooltip. And since I'm just going to put one item, I'm not going to put anything in the show tooltip. And I'm going to make it equipped. Just any old thing. This chest piece. We'll put this chest piece. Let's save. So now, got the name of it. Crimson Aspirate Silk Robe. What do I have on? I have this purple item, right? So when I click this, it switches them out. And that is a equip macro, right? So awesome. So now we've gone over some pretty common ones, the cast and the use and the equipped. It would take way too long for me to go over them and make a macro for each one. So I'm going to put the general commands that are used at the beginning, and I'll go over them, just with words real quick. So we have the use, right, which we just experimented with, and that's going to use an item. Trinkets are 13 and 14. Then we have the equip, and that's how we're going to use a macro to equip an item, switch some items out if we want to. The cast macro, which we just use with soul rot, and that's going to allow you to put casting an ability into a macro. Cast sequence, which we don't use very much for PvP. I think it's not very flexible, but maybe there's some scenarios where you are. Essentially what a cast sequence does is you're going to list many spells, and every time you use a spell, it's going to replace that button with the next spell on the cast sequence. And typically they come with a reset function, where if you don't use the button after a certain period of time, it'll go back to the first ability in the sequence. So if I have, a cast sequence with Bark Skin, and then the next ability is Renewal, and then the next ability is Soaring Roar, and I have a reset timer of 30 seconds, I cast Bark Skin, and I don't use Renewal in 30 seconds, right? Because the thing will change from Bark Skin to Renewal after I use Bark Skin. It'll go back to putting Bark Skin back at the top. So you can look those up. There's a lot of YouTube videos on it. I don't think it's very useful, and I think it's very time consuming to talk about for PvP. And I try to stay away from it. It is not automation. You think it's automation. You think you click the button and it's when you use those abilities in order, but no, you still have to click them, and that's why it's not quite as desirable as it sounds. The next thing is the focus macro, right? If you don't know what a focus is, I've gone over it in my PvP settings and the edit mode video. A focus is kind of like an extra target, not your main target, but it's like your secondary target, right? So you can cast spells at your focus by using /focus, and you can set your focus by using /focus, and eventually with conditionals, we can cast abilities out of focus, which we'll go at next. Then there's the clear focus, which is going to remove our secondary target, right? Clear target, which is going to remove our current target, so we'll be targeting nothing. The assist command, which means that if I make a /assist command and then I put a player's name after it, it's going to target whoever that person is targeting. Then we have the pet passive, so you have pet commands. I usually don't have any conditionals with these, so it would be like /pet passive will make your pet go from being whatever defensive or offensive to being passive, and he won't do anything when you attack things. Then defensive is going to be /pet defensive, and when you get hit, your pet will react, right? /pet attack, right? This is really useful. You can bind it to things to have your pet switch targets, and it's going to direct your pet to attack whatever your target is, right? Pet follow. So this is really good if you have your pet far away. You might need a macro that has pet follow in it, and your pet will come back to you. So it helps manage your pets. Pet stay. It's going to tell your pet to stay where it is, right? And then we have some really important ones. /cancel form. That's going to get rid of things like being in stealth. Shadow form is a good one. Bear is a form, right? Stances for the warrior are forms. Things of that nature. Then we also have cancel aura, and this is really, really important. Cancel aura macro. So let's say you're a warrior, and the Ret Paladin on your team or the Holy Paladin on your team puts Blessing of Protection on you. You need a cancel aura macro to remove the Blessing of Protection when you want to deal damage, because Blessing of Protection makes it so you can't do physical damage, and it's 10 seconds long. So sometimes you don't need the full 10 seconds, but the Paladin can't take it off you, so you can keep doing damage. It's actually your responsibility to get rid of it when you're ready, when you're done being healed and you come back to do damage. So cancel aura is really important. It's also how you're going to ice block and cancel ice block without right-clicking the ability. It's how you're going to cancel dispersion, right? Sometimes I shorten my dispersion up on my priest so I can get a nice fear bomb out of dispersion. It makes you unpredictable out of your immunities, right? It's one really solid use of it. We have the stop casting command. Stop casting is going to do what it says. Like if I'm casting an ability and somebody else starts casting fear and I want to interrupt it, then I'm going to have stop cast cancel in front of my interrupt ability, like counterspell, so that I interrupt immediately and I don't wait until the ability is done casting to use my counterspell, right? Then we'll do target last enemy. So if I'm on a target and I hit a macro target last enemy on, it will move over to attacking that guy, right? Whoever my last opponent was, right? So we'll switch targets from current one to my last enemy. Other than that, there's a couple more, but I think those are the really big ones for commands, and I'll list them all on the screen, and you can experiment with them. But now we're going to move into conditionals. Alright, so we're going to move on to conditionals, and the first ones we're going to start with are targeting conditionals. So we understand commands, right? Now, conditions are going to affect our commands, and targeting conditionals are going to affect what our command goes on, what it gets used on, right? So let's make a let's make a macro. So we go into macros, make new, and we go test, right? And we'll use a targeting /target. And whenever we see brackets, that means there's a condition coming. So brackets mean condition. And when you see an @ symbol, it means it's a targeting condition. I'm going to target at whatever it is. Okay, so we'll make it player. And we'll end bracket. Let's save. But because it's not casting ability and we don't have a pound show tooltip command on the front, this is one of those situations where you do find an icon, right? So we'll find an icon, and it'll be this dinosaur. We'll put it over here. And what this should do is it will target myself. Why would you want to target yourself? Well, for healing, for one, but also a lot of the functions in the game, the keybinds, when you spam it, will also target your pet if you have one. It'll target you, then target your pet, then target you, then target your pet. But if you make a macro that's at player, yourself, you're the player, it'll always just target you. So when I hit this button, it targets me. You can see down here, this is my target, right? I'm targeting symphonies. I hit this button, it's targeting me. I'm targeting this dummy. I hit this button, it's targeting me. So you just saw your first targeting conditional. Let's open that back up. And let's look at maybe another one. Maybe, there it is. And let's delete it. And then let's use /cast bracket at focus. Let's use regrowth, which is a healing ability if you don't know what that is. So we got this test over here. Actually, when you save things, it updates the button you currently have. So keep that in mind. You actually don't have to drag it anymore. Let's set myself as a focus. So you can see up here, I'm the focus. And then let's target this dummy right here. And now we'll use this button. It heals us. So again, without dropping my target. So I'm able to come in here, be a bear, damage this target, and heal myself without using this as a target. Normally what I would have to do is target this guy, target myself, heal myself, and then target this guy again to do damage. So you can see where this is really strong and keeping your targets and managing your UI. Awesome. So we did an at focus. Okay, here's another one that's really, really good. And we'll do at, make it new, /cast bracket at, you're going to like this one, cursor, end bracket, space. And let's use Ursol's Vortex. And because Ursol's Vortex is an ability, I can put a show tooltip. Nice. Because I had the dinosaur on, I had to go up and hit this question mark to remove it so that it wouldn't overpower the show tooltip command. So now I have pound show tooltip /cast at cursor Ursol's Vortex. And if you know, normally we have to click it and then put it somewhere, right? I wish I hadn't done that. All right, we're back. So I'll make sure I don't hit the button accidentally. We're going to use our at cursor macro with our Ursol's Vortex, which we have right here, but I actually have it bound so I can click it. You have to have it key bound. You cannot have it clicked. So go to the key bindings video, check out the key binds, check out my philosophy on it, and pretty much everybody's professional playing philosophy. All right, you ready? I just put it down and I saved like half a second of me clicking the button, dragging it over there and placing it. Now I can be in the fight, be like, oh, I need to use it on that guy, boom. I can just place it. I don't have to click it and drag it somewhere. I don't have to hit a button to click it and then put it somewhere, it goes right there at that second. So if you're clicking a key binding and then placing it, sometimes, like Shadow Fury, that's okay. But in general, you want to be able to put it down when you think of it. And at cross the cursor does that exactly. Nice. Let's make another macro. Let's go in here, let's go to macros, and let's go to our test. Let's delete all this nonsense. And I'm going to use a mouse over function, right? Or mouse over command, right? Actually, that's the one I'm going to use. Test. And this is one of my favorite ones. It's going to be slash focus bracket at, and we're going to learn a new one, and it's going to be the mouseover. And what the mouseover does, let me type it in, is wherever our mouse is, that's where the command will take place. So if, let's save it, because there's no ability in it, let's give it an icon. We'll use an elephant this time. I'll drag this over here. Actually, yeah, drag it over there. And I'm just setting it there, but really I have it bound elsewhere because it has to be bound to the keybind. I can't have it clicked, right? So my mouse is currently over easy C, and I'm going to set him as my function. Oh, wrong button. Boom, there we go. So you can see he's now up here. I'll clear my focus, right? And I'll go over here, and you see this training dummy? I will make it my focus now. Oh, it's my focus. See this guy? He's my focus now. This is my focus now. This guy's my focus. This guy's my focus. That guy's my focus. Right? And you can do it with a lot of things, right? Now he's getting healed. I have a mouse over regrowth. Right? I also can mouse over Moonfire, right? I have it selected. I don't have it selected. Right? But I can mouse over root. Boom. Mouse over root. Mouse over root. Didn't land on that thing. Yeah, those guys have, I'm missing them. Mouse over root. Boom. So that is the mouse over. So you've seen the focus, the player, the cursor, and the mouse over. Actually, we haven't done the focus yet. Let's do the add focus. So, let's make this guy our focus. Goobers. Make goobers our focus. Nice. And let's make a macro. Boom. We'll go down to test. And we'll type slash cast bracket at focus, our secondary target, and we'll make it regrow. Just because we're used to that, right? And do pound show tooltip regrowth. If you notice, it's saved and you use regrowth anyway, but you do the show tooltip in case you have stacked things, which eventually you will. You want it to show a specific one and not just randomly select the top one, right? So we'll make our right here, and boom, and delete this old one. Boom, and we got this nice regrowth macro, and it's going to cast at our focus, even though I'm targeting this training dummy. Should heal this guy over here. Nice, it did. And you can see why this is really, really strong, right? So if my focus was this training dummy over here, which I just mouse over focus macro on him, and I'm targeting the one beside it, and I target my focus. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. There we go. So I've used my focus, entangling roots, while I was targeting this one. So I can be damaging this guy, and I can put Moonfire on my focus target, or I can actually do damage to my focus target for a second. Nice. I can root my focus target. I can attempt to, you can't cycle these things, but I can attempt to cyclone my focus target. Right? I can make a friend, right? A friend of focus, and I can target this guy, and I can heal him. Right? Boom, he's getting healed behind me. So, focus macros, or using the focus in the settings, a function in the settings where you use a modifier to apply focus to anything, which I explained in my other video, is absolutely critical in at least 2 scenarios, but really all of them. Battlegrounds, and 2s. But I also think it's strong in World PvP, and you can use it in 3s, but it's not optimal. What's optimal in 3s, and there's no way for me to show it here on the dummies, but is actually, I'm making it right now. You see me changing the spell to a damage dealing spell, because I'm always going to be damaging my my arena opponents. And if you have arena frames, which you should went over in the edit video, or if you have an add-on like S Arena or Gladius X that shows you arena frames, I'm going to go /cast bracket at, there we go, you ready? Arena 1. So that'll be the first person on the frame, and this is critical. It's only good in arenas. It's necessary in 3s. You have to have it if you want to get far, right? People have done it with focus, and people still do it with focus, but the new player coming in shouldn't pick up those older habits and should take in more modern solutions, which is going to be at Arena 1, 2, and 3. Right? So what this does is when I'm on a target and I hit this ability, it's going to use Moonfire on Arena 1, even if I'm on Arena 2, the second player on that team, or if I'm on Arena 3. This works the same with Party 1 or Party 2, right? So this could be Regrowth, right? And this will target my party members. Now keep in mind that when you're in 3s, you are not Party 1. You are yourself. Party 1 is actually the second player on your team, and Party 2 is the third player on your team. I know that's confusing, but just think that your party doesn't include yourself. You're your own thing, and then everyone else is your party member. So the second person in your party beside yourself is Party 1, and the third third person in the party, I say third because I'm including you in the conversation, but really it's the second person is Party 2. So if I had 3 people on my team and I was on the top, Party 1 would be the next guy, Party 2 would be my second DPS. Let's say I'm a healer, right? If there was a guy above me, right? So if it was like a DPS, me as a healer, and then another DPS, Party 1 would be the guy above me, Party 2 would be the guy below me, and Party Self would be me. If I was at the bottom, Party 1 would be the guy all the way at the top, Party 2 would be the guy right below him, and then Self would be me. So you need a target Self macro, and you need Party 1 to Arena 1, 2, 3, because the time it takes your mouse to travel over to the party frames is time spent not looking at what you need to be looking at. You need party target, and a lot of people really need to hear that. It's really important as a healer, especially. I will say that mouseover works on party frames as well. So like I can mouse over like on their actual person, but I can mouse over on party frames too without clicking them and selecting them. I think mouseover is really good if you don't have a macro for it, which you should have a Party 1 and Party 2 Blessing of Protection macro. But if you don't, you could use mouseover, hover over their party frame, and spam your Blessing of Protection on them, and it'll go on them. But really, you want to make macros for each of your party members. Don't be lazy, and don't say, I only use it for Arena, so why would I do that? You're trying to min-max when you play Arena. Okay? So that so far is Party 1, Party 2, Arena 1, 2, 3, Cursor, Mouseover, Player, Focus, and there's one more, big one at least. And we'll go to Macro. And I don't have one here, but you can also do /cast bracket at your pet, right? And I could cast Regrowth on my pet, if I had a pet. And that would make it so I could stay on a target and heal my pet. That is going to be the most important targeting conditionals that you're going to need. I think if you need any other ones, you can just go look it up. But those are the main ones, right? So we'll move on to the last of the conditionals right now. All right, so we're on hopefully the last bit, and this is going to be conditionals, and we just went over commands and targeting conditionals. Now we're just going to do the standard conditionals, right? So first thing we're going to start with are modifiers, which I think are the most important ones to understand, right? So we'll go new, test, and we'll learn about modifiers. And we'll go show tooltip, right? And we'll do cast, and here we go. If we want to use a macro that uses Shift, Alt, or Control, right, we would do it like this. If it's got no modifier at all, you don't have to put anything, or if you're using multiple mods in it, I might put no mod. Okay, so this is the first condition. If you want to put multiple conditions within the bracket, you'd use comma. Comma is seen as the word and, right? I'm going to put a space, and then we'll combine it with a targeting condition. At focus, right? And we'll end bracket. So now we've seen a conditional, a target conditional, a command in the beginning cast, and we'll just use regrow. And we'll save it. So now with no mod, it's going to cast regrowth at our focus. It's as simple as I think I can make it. We'll make month of WoW. We'll make that our focus. And we will click the button. And with no mod, it'll target him. But let's add another line. /cast mod. I'm going to add a mod. Use a colon, and we'll make the mod shift, right? Put a comma at focus, and we'll make it cast, I don't know, rejuvenate. Rejuvenation. That's why. Nice, and we'll save it. So now when I hold shift and I click it, it'll put rejuvenation on him. When I don't hold shift and I click it, it'll put regrowth. You see how that works, right? And then the next one, alt, we'll use the alt mod, and we'll put no targeting conditional, and we'll put, let's think, Modifier. We'll save it. We'll target this guy. So I have my focus as month of WoW, and I have two things. When I use nothing, it heals him. When I hold shift, it regrowths him. But when I hold alt, it puts Moonfire on my current target because I have no targeting modifier on it. Right? But if I made it regrowth and I put a comma and I put at player, if you remember earlier in the video, that would target myself. Now when I hold alt and I click the button, it'll heal myself. I'm getting healed if you look over here on the right there. You see how this works? The other modifier is control, and it's CTRL. And we'll make it at, we'll just make it at player. And we'll do rejuvenation again, because these are easy spells to understand. So now, when I hold control and use this button, it puts rejuvenate on myself. So I got this target training dummy. If I have no mod, it regrows my focus. If I hold shift, it rejuvenates my focus. If I hold alt, it regrows myself. If I hold control, it will rejuvenate myself. Right? I also saw me use Moonfire with no mod, and so on and so forth. So now you've learned about modifiers and how you can take one button and make it potentially 4 buttons. You can save a lot of space on your bindings if you use this. Of course, you know I do it a little different with the modifiers, that I actually use all my action bars, put the modifiers on the action bar and not in the macro, and then just hide the action bars. But this is an alternative way to do it, and it's the same exact thing as having them laid out like this, right? Where I might have, I don't have any examples, but I might have two rejuvenate buttons, because one of my rejuvenates is for my focus target and one of them is for me, right? Or I could have one button that has a modifier conditional in it where it switches to something else when I hold that button and does a different thing. So this is your first example of modifiers, right? Which are probably the most important thing for you to learn at first, right? So it's a pretty nice macro, and you can change these abilities around anything. Typically, people do like, this would be a good example of one. Nothing. When I hold shift, we'll make it at arena 1. When I hold alt, make it at arena 2. And when I hold control, 3. And then we'll use this one will be Cyclone. This one will be Cyclone. And this one can be Cyclone. And now with one button, I have an individual Cyclone with one, icon for each person on the enemy team, depending on what modifier I hold when I press it. So that would be modifiers with conditions, right? I hope this makes sense. Because this is, if you understand this, you understand everything. Because this is it. This is the pinnacle of complication. Alright? So let's save it and move on to some other conditions. Okay, now that we learned about modifiers and target, conditionals, we're going to talk about the different conditionals you can add to them, right? So let's start off new. And you can have as many conditionals as you want, but if you make them contradict each other, you're going to have problems, right? So let's go show tooltip. I also forgot to mention that if you use modifiers, right? I think I use mod alt, right? And then I go /cast mod, shift, and I make this rejuvenation. I make this one regrowth. And I don't put anything after show tooltip. Depending on what I hold will change what it shows. So I'm holding alt right now, it shows regrowth. When I hold shift, it shows this. If I had something that had no mod, it'll show base that. Nice. So here's some other ones, and really you just need to know what they do so that you can understand them and you can use them. So I want to take the modifiers out. Actually, I'm going to leave them in just so you can understand stacking conditionals. So I got no mod, and then we'll put in this. Save. So if the target exists, right? If it's true, if I have it as a target, if I can use it. Let's do it like this. We'll do no dead. So if my target's not dead, no dead, right? If it said dead, it would be, if it's dead, use it. But if it's not dead, it'll use Cyclone. Does that make sense, right? So if it's not dead, it'll use Cyclone. You could add more modifiers to it, right? I could go, if my focus isn't dead, I'll use Cyclone on it. When I don't have a focus, but we'll make this my focus. I'll use Cyclone on it, because it's not dead. It's right there. But if it was dead, it wouldn't work, right? Let's get rid of these other ones so you don't have to look at them. And then keep playing with the same one. So that's no dead. Let's look at some other ones. Let's do no mod harm. And we'll make it Moonfire. So if I can harm what I'm targeting, it'll cast Moonfire. And I'm going to throw a spin at you. If you want to make it have different, if you wanted to look at the conditionals and do different things based on it, we're going to use SEMICOLON, and we're going to use Modifier, and we're going to use the word help. That'll be the new one. We'll do no mod help, and we'll make it use frequent, because that's what we now do. So if my target is a bad guy, I'll use Spoonfire. If my target's a good guy, I'll use Regrowth. Wow. So I would never want to regrowth my enemy, but I would want a Moonfire. So with this button, I've now saved myself extra space by making my regrowth ability also my Moonfire ability. And if you know, I always target myself to heal, so it'll never be an issue, right? I don't use auto self-cast all that much. I really just target myself to heal because it's the same. There's no extra time on it, right? I'm just moving my finger to hit a different thing. So now with no mod, Moonfire on the target if I can, or if my target is a good guy, it'll regrowth them. This is a really powerful thing that you can do a lot with. I'm going to show you another one. No mod, comma, combat, healthstone. Let's make it eat. Let's make it not contra refreshment. Let's make it, what do I have in here to drink? Claystone, yeah, we'll use. So now, with this macro, when I'm not in combat, no combat, it'll drink. When I'm in combat, it'll use a health stone, right? So if I'm in combat, it'll, if I'm not in combat, it'll drink. So let's get in combat. And look, because I don't have a health stone, right? You see, this is where it is. It would normally look like a health stone, but I don't have one. It won't do anything until I drop combat. It will start drinking. Very powerful, and you should let your mind race on how you can use this to minimize your bars. Especially if you're using a self-target macro, which everyone should have one, right? Very cool. Let's look at some other ones. Channeling, right? If I'm channeling something, so it'd be like channeling. Okay, I'm obviously not a warlock. I just used a channeling ability. Everybody knows Drain Life is a warlock ability where they channel something. So if you channel something, it means for the duration of it, it's doing the effect versus casting something, which means at the end of the cast, it'll do the effect. So the duration of my cast, it's doing it, right? So if I'm not channeling Drain Life, it'll cast Great Drain Life. Why is this good? Warlocks have a talent called Inevitable Demise, and it's when you get a certain stacks and use Drain Life, it will do a lot more damage. But if you spam Drain Life, it'll cast Drain Life and then cast it again on your next spam. But this makes it so that if you're already casting Drain Life and you hit this button again, it doesn't cast Drain Life again and ruin your stats. Does that make sense? So experiment with these. Understand that understand that each of these has a true and a false version. So what this would do would say, if I'm channeling Drain Life and I hit this button, channel Drain Life again. You don't really want that because it's going to reset the channel, but that's what it does. If it says no stealth, but then I go and I put a semicolon and I say, how about if I am stealth though? I want you to use rake. So what's this going to do? When I'm stealth, it's going to use rake. When I'm not stealth, it's going to use disorienting roar. I don't have those spec right now. Incapacitating roar. Sorry. Let's see if it does it. Nice. And then when I'm stealth, let's put a point in rake. Let's take this one out. Put a point in rake. Boom. Change the talents. Nice. So I'm in stealth. It's rake. But now that I'm out, it's incapacitating roar. Isn't that cool, right? So that's a way, and really macros start to get cool when you start to understand this concept. I could also stack some things with it. I could be like, yeah, incapacitating roar if my target's not dead, and yeah, use rake if he's hurt, right? Or if he's a bad guy, right? Not if he's hurt, if he's a bad guy, right? So now, if the target's a bad guy, it'll have rake. But if it's a good guy, it doesn't say anything because I don't have a thing that says what to do if it's a nice guy. So maybe we'll put macro from stealth and I can help the guy and I hit this ability, it'll use regrowth. Dope. So now that I'm targeting him and I'm stealth, it'll use regrowth. Nice. But now that I'm not stealth and he's not dead, we'll use incapacitating roar. Very cool. All right. I think I've kind of got this idea of stacking the conditionals in the brackets. And I also went over the idea of using the semicolon to have one line of syntax kind of do multiple things depending on the form you're in, right? Stealth is a form. I'm going to list some things for you to play with. Understand that there's a true and there's a false. If it doesn't say new in front, no in front, it's true. If it says no in front, it's false. I got combat, exists, dead, arm, help, stealth, mounted, channeling, indoors and outdoors, Nopet. I think those are the really big ones. A good example of Nopet would be like the conditional will be Nopet, and since there's no pet, I'll make it revive pet or call pet. And if there is a pet, the conditionals, I can, because there is a pet, it'll be pet attack, right? So it'll be my pet attack button, but if I don't have a pet, it'll summon it. It's a great example of Nopet. So I've got the list up. Experiment with them. Hopefully you know a lot more about macros than when you started, or you picked up something small. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's quite a long video. It's quite an in-depth, complicated topic for a lot of WoW players, but really it's not that bad. And in an hour or however long this video is, you can pretty much completely understand it. So thanks for tuning in. Put something in the comments. It helps. Like, comment, subscribe, right? And then if there's anything you want me to change, that would be absolutely amazing. So you guys have a good rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in.